The fluorescent lights of Roosevelt Technical Institute hummed overhead as Maya Chin navigated her powered wheelchair through the crowded cafeteria. The smell of reheated pizza and industrial coffee filled the air while students clustered around plastic tables, their conversations creating a constant buzz of noise. Maya had learned to time her meals carefully, arriving just after the initial rush but before the late crowd, to avoid the worst of the shoulder bumps and careless collisions. Tea hadn't always been this way. 6 months ago, she'd been rushing between her computer programming classes like everyone else, her mind focused on algorithms and code rather than the accessibility of doorways and the height of water fountains. The car accident had changed everything in an instant, leaving her with paralyzed legs in a world that suddenly seemed designed to exclude her. Her older brother David worked as a security guard at the same technical college, pulling night shifts to pay for his own cybersecurity degree. He was built like a linebacker, broad shoulders, steady hands, and eyes that missed nothing. During the day, he attended classes and tried to keep an eye on Maya without being obvious about it. She appreciated his protection but hated needing it. The trouble started with Marcus Webb, Tyler Kim, and Jake Morrison, 3 students from the automotive program who seemed to think Maya's wheelchair made her fair game for their entertainment. It began with small things, blocking her path in narrow hallways, making engine noises when she rolled by, calling her speed racer with sneering grins. The instructors either didn't notice or chose not to see it, and Maya tried to ignore them, focusing instead on her coursework. She was close to completing her associate degree in software development, and several tech companies had already expressed interest in hiring her. But the harassment escalated week by week, and her concentration began to slip. One Tuesday afternoon, during a mandatory assembly about workplace safety, the 3 boys found their opportunity. As everyone stood for the opening remarks, Maya remained seated. She had no choice. Marcus leaned over from the row behind her. "Look, she doesn't even respect the safety presentation," he whispered loudly enough for others to hear. "Maybe if she tried harder, she could stand up like everyone else." Tyler chimed in, "Nah, she's just lazy. Probably faking it for attention." The words hit Maya like physical blows. She felt her face burn as nearby students turned to stare, some laughing nervously, others looking away in embarrassment. An instructor glanced over but said nothing, apparently deciding the disruption wasn't worth addressing. Jake pulled out his phone and started recording. "Hey Maya, show everyone how you walk. Come on, just try a little harder." Maya's hands trembled on her wheelchair controls. She wanted to leave, to escape their laughter, but the row was packed tight with folding chairs. She was trapped, forced to endure their mockery while the safety presentation droned on about proper lifting techniques and avoiding workplace injuries. When the assembly finally ended, Maya rolled herself to the bathroom and locked the door. Only then did she allow herself to cry, her shoulders shaking with a mixture of rage and helplessness. She didn't tell David what had happened when he picked her up that afternoon, but he noticed her red eyes and the way she stared silently out the passenger window. David had always been protective of his younger sister, but since the accident, that protectiveness had intensified into something harder. He'd grown up in rough neighborhoods before their family moved to suburbia, and he knew how to handle bullies. But Maya had begged him not to get involved, terrified that his intervention would only make her situation worse. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. Maya had stayed late in the computer lab, working on a complex database project that was due the next morning. The building was nearly empty except for a few evening classes and the maintenance crew. She was packing up her materials when Marcus, Tyler, and Jake appeared in the doorway. "Well, look who's still here," Marcus said, stepping into the lab. "Working hard or hardly working?" Maya's pulse quickened. "The lab is closing. You guys need to leave." Tyler laughed. "We're not the ones taking up space where we don't belong." They moved closer, surrounding her workstation. Maya realized with growing panic that her wheelchair was positioned between 2 heavy computer desks. She couldn't maneuver out quickly. "You know what your problem is?" Jake said, leaning against her desk. "You think you're special just because you're in that chair." "I don't think I'm special," Maya replied quietly. "I just want to be left alone." Marcus walked around to her side. "But you are special, aren't you? Getting all those accommodations, extra time on tests, special parking spaces. Must be nice." Before Maya could respond, Tyler reached for her wheelchair's joystick control. "Let me try driving this thing." "Don't touch that," Maya said, panic rising in her voice, but Tyler had already grabbed the control unit, yanking it from its mount. The chair jerked sideways, and Maya had to grip the armrests to keep from sliding off. "Oops," Tyler said with mock concern. "Looks like it's broken." Marcus and Jake laughed as Tyler tossed the control unit across the room, where it clattered against a bank of monitors. Without the control, Maya's chair was dead weight. She couldn't move, couldn't escape. "Now you're really stuck," Jake said, pulling out his phone to record. "Let's see how independent you are without your fancy chair." Maya tried to reach for her backup manual controls, but Marcus grabbed her wrist. None of that. We're not done talking to you yet. That's when David appeared in the doorway. He'd been making his security rounds when he heard voices from the computer lab. One look at the scene, his sister trapped in her powerless wheelchair, 3 boys standing over her with phones out, the control unit smashed on the floor, and something cold and final settled in his chest. Step away from her, David said, his voice deadly calm. Marcus turned, irritation flashing across his face. This is none of your business, rent-a-cop. David walked into the room slowly, his eyes never leaving the 3 boys. That's my sister. So it's absolutely my business. Tyler smirked. What are you going to do about it? Report us to the principal? David's response was swift and decisive. He grabbed Tyler by the front of his shirt and slammed him against the whiteboard so hard that dry erase markers scattered across the floor. Tyler's phone flew from his hand, clattering under a desk. Hey! Jake shouted, stepping forward. David spun and caught him with a straight punch to the solar plexus that doubled him over. Gasping, Marcus tried to tackle David from behind, but David had been in enough fights to sense the attack coming. He sidestepped and used Marcus's momentum against him, sending him crashing into a bank of computer monitors. Plastic cracked and screens went dark. Tyler, still pressed against the whiteboard, swung wildly at David's head. David ducked and drove his elbow into Tyler's ribs, feeling something give way under the impact. Tyler crumpled to the floor, clutching his side and struggling to breathe. Jake had recovered enough to charge again, but David was ready. He caught Jake's arm, twisted it behind his back, and drove him face-first into the nearest desk. Blood from Jake's nose spattered across a keyboard. The entire fight lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, all 3 boys were on the floor, groaning and bleeding. David stood over them, breathing hard but controlled, his security uniform torn at the shoulder. If any of you touch my sister again, David said quietly, what just happened will seem like a gentle warning. He walked to Maya, who sat frozen in her powerless chair, eyes wide with shock. David carefully retrieved the broken control unit and examined it. The connection is just loose, he said gently, his voice completely different now. I can fix this. Within minutes, he had Maya's chair operational again. She drove it slowly toward the door, not looking back at the 3 boys who were still picking themselves up off the floor. Are you okay? David asked as they left the building. Maya nodded, but she was trembling. They're going to report you. You're going to get fired, maybe arrested. David helped her into their modified van, securing her wheelchair in place. Let them report me. I've got everything on the security cameras. But Maya was right to be worried. By the next morning, all 3 boys' parents had contacted the college administration. Marcus had a concussion, Tyler had 2 cracked ribs, and Jake needed stitches for his broken nose. Their families painted David as an unhinged security guard who had brutally attacked their innocent sons. David was immediately suspended pending an investigation. The college's initial response was to minimize the incident. They called it an altercation between students and staff and promised a thorough review of their security protocols. Maya was devastated. Her brother had sacrificed his job and his future to protect her, and now the system was treating him like the criminal. The 3 boys returned to classes with their injuries held up as evidence of their victimization, while David faced possible criminal charges, when Maya decided to fight back in the way she knew best, with technology. She spent the next week systematically gathering evidence. Using her programming skills, she accessed the college's security camera system and pulled footage from multiple angles showing the entire incident. She also recovered deleted videos from the boys' social media accounts, including clips they had taken of previous harassment sessions. More damaging still, Maya discovered a group chat between Marcus, Tyler, and Jake where they had planned their attacks on her. Using slurs and discussing how to mess with the cripple girl without getting caught, Maya compiled everything into a comprehensive digital portfolio, then uploaded it to social media with a detailed account of months of harassment that the college had ignored. She tagged local news outlets, disability rights organizations, and the college's official accounts. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The video of David defending Maya, showing clearly that he had acted only after finding his sister trapped and threatened, went viral within hours. The recovered chat messages revealed the boys' deliberate targeting of a disabled student, contradicting their claims of innocence. Local news stations picked up the story. Disability advocates rallied support. The college found itself under intense scrutiny as more students came forward with similar experiences of harassment that had been brushed aside by administration. Within a week, Marcus, Tyler, and Jake were expelled. David was not only reinstated but promoted to head of campus security. The college implemented new anti-harassment policies and mandatory sensitivity training for all students and staff, but the real victory came 6 months later, when Maya was hired by a major tech company that had seen her story and been impressed by both her technical skills and her courage in fighting systemic injustice. Her first project was developing accessibility software for disabled employees, turning her painful experience into a tool for helping others. David completed his cybersecurity degree and was recruited by the same company to head their digital security division. Brother and sister worked in the same building again, but this time as equals, both valued for their unique strengths. The three boys found their college prospects severely limited. Their expulsions and the viral documentation of their harassment followed them to every institution they applied to. Marcus eventually enrolled in a community college 2 states away. Tyler and Jake took minimum-wage jobs and largely disappeared from social media. Maya never forgot the helpless feeling of being trapped in that computer lab, or the moment when her brother appeared in the doorway like an avenging angel. But she also never forgot the power she had discovered in fighting back, not with fists, but with truth, technology, and the determination to ensure that no other student would have to endure what she had experienced. Sometimes justice required both kinds of strength, the physical courage to stand up to bullies, and the intellectual persistence to expose systems that enabled them. Maya and David had both, and they used them to build something better from the wreckage of their worst day.